My husband asked me to give my kidney to his mother and then abandon me. But fate had other plans. That very kidney saved a magnate who was ready to destroy my ex-husband's life. Watch how karma unfolds. The sharp smell of disinfectant seemed to have seeped into every pore of Christina Montgomery's skin. She had already passed 2 weeks spending her days in the corridors of the exclusive Angels Medical Center. Sitting on a cold chair in the waiting area, she watched her husband, Stephen, pace back and forth, his face tight with anxiety. Inside the Diamond Suite, her mother-in-law, Mrs. Eleanor Harrison, was fighting end-stage kidney failure. Stephen Harrison's voice broke the silence. He dropped to his knees in front of Christina and took her cold hands in his. His eyes were bloodshot, filled with desperate pleading. The doctor says my mother does not have much time left. Dialysis is no longer working and her heart is growing weaker. Christina swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. I know, Stephen. It hurts to see her like this. We cannot wait on the national transplant list. It could take years, he insisted, squeezing her hands tighter. But you are compatible. The preliminary tests last week confirmed that your blood type and tissue match. It is a miracle, sweetheart. Christina looked away. The topic had come up 3 times in the past 2 days, and each time her fear had grown more real. Losing an organ was no small matter. I am scared, she whispered honestly. It is major surgery. What if there are complications? What if afterward I cannot have children? Stephen exhaled sharply, then softened his expression. He cupped Christina's face in his hands. Sweetheart, listen to me. Medical technology has advanced tremendously. You will be fine. And as for children, we have all the time in the world. Right now, the most important thing is my mother. He looked straight at her, playing his strongest card. Christina, you have been an orphan since you were a child. You always said you longed for the warmth of a big family. Even if my mother has been a little strict with you, it was because she wanted you to become a strong daughter-in-law. This is your moment. Prove that you are not an outsider. Prove that you are part of the Harrison bloodline, that you are one of us. Those words struck the most vulnerable place in Christina's heart: family. Since her parents died in an accident when she was 10, she had lived wrapped in a constant loneliness. Her marriage to Stephen 2 years earlier had been her hope of finally belonging somewhere. But Mrs. Eleanor Harrison had never fully accepted her because of her humble background, unlike his family of prosperous textile entrepreneurs. If I go through with this surgery, Christina's voice trembled, will your mother truly accept me? Of course, Stephen smiled as if a tremendous weight had just been lifted from him. You will be the savior of this family. My mother will love you like a daughter. I promise you. I will protect you for the rest of my life. After this, we will be happy. The promise was too sweet, too intoxicating for someone so starved for love. In the end, Christina nodded slowly. All right. I will donate my kidney to your mother. A flash of triumph crossed Stephen's face, barely visible before he pulled her into a tight embrace. Thank you, sweetheart. You will not regret this. Christina returned the hug, not noticing that his gaze over her shoulder held no love at all. Only the look of someone who had just closed a difficult business deal. The administrative process moved forward with unusual speed, as if Stephen and the hospital had everything prepared in advance, waiting only for her consent. The night before the surgery, Christina sat in a restricted access administrative office. In front of her lay a stack of medical consent forms. Stephen sat beside her while a notary and a young surgeon waited silently. This is standard procedure, Ms. Montgomery, the doctor explained. It is a declaration that the donation is voluntary, without coercion or material compensation. Christina scanned the documents. She paused at the clauses outlining the risk of death and possible long-term complications. The hand holding the pen trembled. Sign here, sweetheart, Stephen said, pointing to the bottom line. And here as well. Oh, and one more thing. This is a waiver of rights in case of an emergency. What is this? Christina asked, pointing to the last page, printed in tiny text. It is just a formality, he replied quickly. In the event of a force majeure situation in the operating room. For example, if a technical problem arises, It gives the doctor full authority to make the best decision according to international transplant protocols. Physically and mentally exhausted by countless preliminary tests, Christina did not argue. He just wanted it to be over. She wanted to see Mrs. Eleanor Harrison's proud smile. She wanted to be accepted as part of the family. She took a deep breath and signed. The black ink dried, sealing her fate. The next morning, Christina lay on a gurney, dressed in a dull green surgical gown. She was wheeled down the corridor toward the operating room. The fluorescent ceiling lights rushed past above her face, making her feel faint and disoriented. At the doors of the operating room, Stephen took Christina's hand one last time. "I love you," he whispered. "I will be waiting for you in recovery. When all this is over, we will go on vacation to Europe. Just you and me. Do you promise?" Christina asked in a faint voice. The effects of the preoperative sedative were already beginning to wash over her. "I promise," Stephen replied. He kissed her on the forehead. It was warm, the only warmth Christina felt in that frozen space. The automatic doors slid open and the gurney rolled inside. The air there was even colder. The rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor marked the passage of time. The anesthesiologist placed an oxygen mask over her face. "Count backward from 10, Ms. Montgomery," a distant voice said. 10, 9, 8. In the final haze of consciousness, Christina prayed silently. "God, please protect me. Let this sacrifice be the bond that unites our family." Darkness closed in. The pain was nothing like she had imagined. It was not a fleeting discomfort, but a burning sensation in her left side, as if a red-hot iron were piercing her. Every breath felt like a stab. Christina blinked, trying to adjust her eyes to the light. She expected to see Stephen's worried face or a large bouquet of flowers. Instead, she found herself in a general ward, a shared ward. The walls were a yellowish cream color with damp stains on the ceiling. Beside her, 2 other patients lay separated by worn curtains. The cough from the patient in the next bed sounded weak and pitiful. "Why am I here?" he thought, confused. "Stephen said they would put me in a private room next to his mother." She tried to press the button to call a nurse, but her hands would not respond. She touched her left abdomen wrapped in a thick bandage. Her kidney was gone. She had fulfilled her part. The door opened. It was not a nurse who entered. It was a group whose presence made Christina's heart race, then nearly stop. Stephen came in first. He was wearing an impeccable suit, his hair perfectly styled. Behind him, a nurse pushed a wheelchair. Sitting in it was Mrs. Eleanor Harrison. Her face was still pale, but her eyes gleamed with an unsettling energy. Walking beside Stephen was another woman, tall and beautiful, wearing a wine-colored dress. Her hand rested familiarly on his arm. "Stephen." Christina's voice came out hoarse, her throat burned. "Mrs. Harrison, why am I in a shared room? Did the surgery go well?" Stephen did not answer. He stepped closer to the bed and dropped a thick brown envelope onto Christina's chest, where she was still writhing in pain. "You fulfilled your function," he said coldly. There were no terms of endearment left in his voice. Christina stared at the envelope with trembling hands. "What is this?" "The divorce papers," he replied casually. "They are already signed by me. All that is missing is your signature, and my lawyer will handle the rest." Christina's world collapsed. The beeping of the monitor beside her sounded like an endless alarm. "Divorce? What? I just gave my kidney to your mother. You said we were a family. You promised." "Family?" Mrs. Eleanor Harrison scoffed. Her voice was harsh, dripping with venom. "Wake up, girl. You were never our equal. You were just an orphan who happened to share my blood type. That was your only usefulness." The elderly woman smiled. It was the cruelest smile Christina had ever seen. "Thank you for the kidney. Now that it is no longer in your body, you are of no use to us. Damaged goods do not belong in the display case." Christina's tears soaked the rough pillow. The pain from the incision was insignificant compared to the agony tearing through her chest. She looked at Stephen, searching for any trace of the man who had once proposed to her. "Tell me this is a lie," she whispered. "You love me, do you not?" The woman in the wine-colored dress let out a soft laugh. She raised her left hand, showing a dazzling diamond ring on her ring finger. "Hello, Christina. Do you remember me?" Through her tears, Christina recognized her. Tiffany. Stephen's former girlfriend, the one he had gone to university with. They had separated years ago so she could pursue her modeling career abroad. "Stephen never loved you," Tiffany Miller said, gently stroking his shoulder. "He married you because we needed a healthy donor for his mother while I was in Paris. We planned everything a year ago when Mrs. Eleanor Harrison was diagnosed with kidney failure. The moment you agreed to donate, your role was over. Now I am back and we are going to get officially engaged." Stephen nodded, showing no guilt whatsoever. "Tiffany is pregnant with my child, Christina. It will be a boy, the legitimate heir of the Harrison family. Everything needs to be put in order. Sign those papers and disappear from our lives." "You are monsters," Christina whispered, her voice breaking. Anger mixed with despair boiled inside her. "I will call the police. I will sue you." Stephen laughed mockingly. "You signed the voluntary donation consent forms without coercion. Legally we are in the clear. And as for the divorce, we will give you $10,000 as compensation. Enough for you to rent a room in a shared apartment while you recover." $10,000? Christina screamed hysterically, ignoring the pain tearing through her abdomen. "That is what a part of my body is worth. That is what it is worth to be used and thrown away like trash. Take it or leave it," Mrs. Eleanor Harrison spat. "Let us go, Stephen, Tiffany. This shared room smells like poverty. I do not want my new kidney to get contaminated." They turned to leave, abandoning Christina in ruins. She felt her soul drain away with every step they took. She had been used, operated on, and discarded in less than 48 hours. Just as Stephen reached for the doorknob, the door flew open from the outside. A tall man in a long white coat entered the room. His commanding presence made the space feel even smaller. 2 nurses and an assistant followed him, their faces tense. It was Dr. James Roberts, the head of transplant surgery at Angels Medical Center. The very doctor who had operated on Christina the day before. His expression, usually controlled, was now hard and cold. His eyes locked onto Stephen and Mrs. Eleanor Harrison. "Who authorized subjecting a freshly transplanted patient to this level of emotional stress?" he asked in a low voice that echoed in the silence. "Are you aware of her heart rate?" Stephen tried to maintain his arrogance. "Doctor, we are finished here. It was just a family matter. Besides, my mother needs to rest. Why do you not take care of Mrs. Eleanor Harrison in the Diamond Suite?" Dr. James Roberts shifted his gaze from the monitor to Stephen's face, then to Mrs. Eleanor Harrison in the wheelchair. In his eyes was a difficult mix of compassion and disdain. "That is precisely what I came to discuss, Mr. Harrison." He stepped past Stephen and positioned himself beside Christina's bed, as if erecting a protective barrier. "I am afraid there is a serious misunderstanding that you, in your hasty celebration, have not yet grasped." "What do you mean?" Tiffany cut in sharply. "Mrs. Eleanor Harrison is cured. The surgery was a success." Dr. James Roberts adjusted his glasses and looked directly at Mrs. Eleanor Harrison. "The retrieval of the kidney from your wife was successful," he said calmly. "However, the transplant into your body was cancelled." Silence fell like a weight. What do you mean cancelled?" Mrs. Eleanor Harrison stammered. "I feel better. I even have a bandage." "That was only the preparatory incision," Dr. James Roberts explained in a clinical tone. "The cut was made but the kidney was not implanted. Just before the transplant began, final results from the central laboratory arrived. An active cytomegalovirus infection was detected in your blood, along with a sudden rejection reaction to the donor tissue. If we had proceeded with the transplant, your body would have rejected the organ within hours, and you would have died on the operating table from an anaphylactic shock." Stephen's face turned ashen. "So, my mother did not receive the kidney." "Correct," Dr. James Roberts confirmed. "And with that infection she is excluded from any transplant list for at least 6 months, until she is fully recovered." Stephen staggered backward and hit the wall. Tiffany raised a hand to her mouth in disbelief. From the bed came Christina's weak voice. She was still trying to process what had happened, but a small spark of hope ignited inside her. Then, if my kidney was not for her, it still exists. Can you put it back? Dr. James Roberts looked at her. His expression softened, filled with respect. I am sorry, Mrs. Harrison. Once a kidney has been removed and disconnected from your vascular system, it cannot be reimplanted into the original donor. The medical risk is far too high. Then where is my wife's kidney? Stephen shouted in panic. If it is not in my mother's body, where did you throw it? It is our asset. Watch your language. Dr. James Roberts cut him off firmly. A human organ is not a commercial asset. He took a clipboard from a nurse and continued. Following international emergency protocols and the contingent donation consent that you forced your wife to sign, when an organ is removed and the primary recipient is declared medically unfit, we are required to offer it to the next compatible patient with the highest priority on the national list. A kidney can survive only a few hours outside the body. Stephen went pale. Last night, Mrs. Harrison's kidney was transplanted into the patient who was staying in the presidential suite, directly one floor above. The operation was an absolute success. The recipient turned out to be an ideal match for Mrs. Harrison's organ. The shared room suddenly felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. You gave it to someone else? Mrs. Eleanor Harrison screamed, completely out of control, trying and failing to rise from the wheelchair. That kidney is mine. It was my right. I paid for this surgery. Technically, the extraction was covered by Mrs. Harrison's insurance, and the transplant was paid for by the new recipient. Dr. James Roberts replied calmly. And you cannot sue us. The very document you used to trap Mrs. Harrison now works against you. The clause states that if an issue arises with the primary recipient, the donor transfers full authority to the medical team to use the organ to save a life. Stephen ran his hands through his hair. His plan had completely collapsed. His mother was still critically ill. Christina's kidney was no longer available, and now she knew all of his intentions. Who? Stephen asked, gasping. Who received that kidney? I will sue him. I will demand millions. Dr. James Roberts allowed himself a slight smile, heavy with warning. I am not sure you would dare confront that person, Mr. Harrison. Your family's textile company is probably not worth even that man's garage. Who is it? Tiffany shouted, losing her patience. The recipient of Mrs. Harrison's kidney is Mr. Albert Sterling. The name hit the room like a devastating blow. Stephen stood frozen, his mouth open. His legs nearly gave way. Mr. Albert Sterling, the founder of Sterling Group, one of the most powerful real estate and mining conglomerates in New York City. A man many called the godfather of the business world, capable of destroying a company with a single phone call. It had been rumored that he had withdrawn from public life because of a serious illness, and now it was clear why. Mr. Albert? Stephen murmured. His face was no longer pale but completely white. He knew that if he dared touch even a single thread of that man's fate, his own life would be over. Dr. James Roberts turned toward Christina, who lay on the bed, still in shock. Ms. Montgomery, Mr. Arthur Orton, Mr. Albert Sterling's head of security and personal assistant, is waiting outside. The gentleman wishes for you to be transferred to the Diamond Suite, next to his own. He wants to personally thank you for the organ that saved his life at a critical moment. Christina looked at Stephen, Tiffany, and Mrs. Eleanor Harrison. The faces that minutes earlier had been filled with arrogance now reflected pure terror. Stephen tried to step closer to her. His expression shifted instantly, turning pleading. Christina, listen to me. The divorce was a moment of weakness. My mother was just joking. Let us forget everything. We are family, right? Christina lowered her gaze to the divorce papers on the blanket, then looked into Stephen's eyes, heavy with hypocrisy. The pain in her chest cooled, hardening into something firm and steady. Doctor, she said weakly but clearly, get me out of here. I do not know these people. Christina. Stephen shouted in panic. Think. You need me. Nurse, call security, Dr. James Roberts ordered without even looking at him. 2 security guards entered and escorted Stephen out as he struggled desperately. They pushed Mrs. Eleanor Harrison's wheelchair, and Tiffany followed with her head lowered in humiliation. The diamond ring on her hand no longer seemed to shine. When the door closed, separating Christina from her dark past, Dr. James Roberts stepped closer and adjusted her pillow. "You are safe now, Ms. Montgomery," he said. "And it seems you have just gained a far more powerful family." Christina closed her eyes. Tears flowed again, but this time they were not tears of sorrow. She had lost a kidney and a cruel husband, yet she felt an immense weight lift from her shoulders. One floor above, an old magnate was waiting for her, ready to offer her the world in exchange for the new life he had received. The transfer felt like stepping into another dimension. Just hours earlier, Christina had been breathing the cheap scent of disinfectant in a crowded shared ward. Now the gurney glided smoothly over thick carpeting on the top level of Angel's Medical Center, an area reserved exclusively for executives and magnates. She was still dizzy from the anesthesia, but lucid enough to notice the difference. There was no noise, no crying, only refined silence and the fresh scent of lilies. Dr. James Roberts walked beside her, checking the intravenous line connected to her hand. On the other side walked a man in an impeccable black suit, who introduced himself as Mr. Arthur Orton, Mr. Albert Sterling's chief assistant. "The room is ready, Miss Montgomery," he said in a formal tone. "The gentleman has ordered that you receive exactly the same treatment as he does. All expenses from the surgery through your full recovery will be covered by Sterling Group." The gurney entered a suite that looked more like a luxury apartment than a hospital room. There was a sitting area with leather sofas, a small kitchen and a massive panoramic window overlooking the New York City skyline. When the nurse helped Christina into a premium electric bed, tears streamed down her face again. Not from physical pain but from the unbearable contrast. The man who had sworn before God to protect her had discarded her like trash after taking an organ from her. And yet, a complete stranger, through a simple medical coincidence, was treating her like a princess. "Why?" Christina asked Mr. Arthur Orton weakly, who stood respectfully at the foot of the bed. "Why are you doing all this?" "I was just an accidental donor." Mr. Arthur Orton inclined his head slightly. His face remained impassive, but his eyes held clear sincerity. "To you it may seem like an accident, Ms. Montgomery, but to Mr. Albert Sterling, your kidney represents a second chance to see the sunrise again. In our world, a debt of life is the most valuable of all. And Mr. Albert Sterling always pays his debts." He then placed a new mobile phone on the bedside table. "Your previous phone was destroyed by Stephen while you were in surgery, according to a nurse's report. This one is new. My number and that of our legal team are already saved. If your ex-husband or his family attempt to come within 100 yards, press the emergency button labeled number 1. Our security team will handle the rest." "Handle it?" Christina asked cautiously. "It means taking all necessary measures to ensure they do not disturb your rest," Mr. Arthur Orton replied calmly. Dr. James Roberts finished checking the vital signs monitors and looked at Christina with a faint smile, unusual for him. "Rest, Ms. Montgomery. Your wounds need time to heal. Remember, healing the body is the easy part. The hardest thing is healing this," he said, touching his chest. "Do not give them the satisfaction of seeing you break." That night, for the first time in her 2 years of marriage, Christina slept without fear of being reprimanded by her mother-in-law or ignored by her husband. In the midst of that silent luxury, a seed of courage began to take root in her fractured heart. A week passed. With nutritious, top-quality meals and a dedicated medical team monitoring her around the clock, Christina's physical condition improved rapidly. But the outside world did not stand still. That morning, Mr. Arthur Orton entered accompanied by a man with a severe expression, carrying a leather briefcase. "Ms. Montgomery, allow me to introduce Attorney Marcus Vance, the head of Mr. Albert Sterling's personal legal team. He is here to assist you with your civil matters." Christina adjusted herself among the pillows. "Civil matters?" The attorney opened the briefcase and spread out several documents. "These are the divorce papers that Stephen threw at you. We have reviewed them. Mr. Harrison's lawyer is pushing for the process to be completed as quickly as possible, citing irreconcilable differences. His client is seeking a default judgment to end it immediately. He wants to marry that woman as soon as possible, Christina murmured, clenching her fists over the blanket. Exactly, the attorney nodded. And that has made him careless. Very careless. He handed her a thick folder. Mr. Harrison and his mother were convinced that you were naive and unfamiliar with the law. During your 2 years of marriage, he repeatedly asked you to sign business documents under the pretext that they were simple administrative formalities for the chief executive officer's wife. Christina nodded slowly. He said they were tax-related matters. I trusted him. The attorney allowed himself a calculating, sideways smile. Mr. Harrison used your name to register real estate assets and controlling stakes in 2 of his textile subsidiaries. The goal was to protect his wealth. If the main company went bankrupt or was sued by banks, those assets would remain safe because they were not in his name. He assumed that, as a submissive wife, you would never claim anything. Christina's heart began to pound. To obtain a quick divorce and give you not a single cent, he filed without requesting a division of assets. The draft is very clear. The plaintiff claims no property from the defendant and for humanitarian reasons, waives any rights to assets registered in the defendant's name. Christina widened her eyes, stunned. Wait, that means... It means, the attorney cut in, not hiding his satisfaction, that 2 textile factories in New Jersey, a townhouse on the Upper East Side and 3 commercial properties in Manhattan are now entirely yours. Once the judge issues the ruling, no one will be able to challenge it. Stephen does not know this. He is too busy with his new relationship and caring for his mother. He forgot that he hid those assets under your name. Or perhaps he believed you would never hire a lawyer capable of tracing them. Christina let out a short laugh that quickly turned into a bitter chuckle. The man who had always called her naive had unknowingly handed her nearly 40% of his net worth. What should I do, counselor? She asked. Her eyes no longer showed fear but resolve. Sign the divorce agreement, he replied. Let him believe he has disposed of you quickly. Do not mention the assets. Allow the court to issue the ruling first. Only afterward will we send the notices of possession. Christina took the pen. Her hands no longer trembled like they had when she signed the donation documents. This time she knew exactly what she was doing. This time Christina was signing her certificate of freedom. Do it, she said. End him slowly. 3 weeks after the surgery, Christina was finally allowed to leave her room. Mr. Arthur Orton escorted her to the rooftop garden of Angels Medical Center, an area closed to the public. There, watching the sunset from a state-of-the-art electric wheelchair, sat Mr. Albert Sterling. He appeared to be around 70 years old. Although his body still bore the marks of surgery, his aura of authority remained intact. He was wearing silk pajamas with a thick blanket draped over his legs. Come closer, child, he said. His voice was deep and steady, yet carried a warm, almost paternal tone. Christina approached slowly, feeling strange standing before one of the most powerful men in the country. Hello, sir. Do not call me that, Mr. Albert Sterling interrupted. Call me Grandpa. Or Mr. Albert if that is still difficult for you. He turned his wheelchair slightly and gestured to a chair beside him. Sit. When Christina did, he studied her in silence for a long moment. So you are the woman who gave a part of her life to a demon. And yet God redirected that sacrifice to me. I did not have another choice, she replied honestly. There are always choices, Mr. Albert Sterling answered sharply, but without cruelty. You chose sacrifice because you longed for love. He sighed and turned his gaze toward the horizon. I have read your file. An orphan fighting alone and then used by the Harrison family. You remind me of my granddaughter who died 10 years ago. She also had a heart that was far too soft. He looked at her again. Listen to me. Your kidney is working inside me now. Every time my blood is cleansed, it is because of you. The doctors say you have given me between 10 and 15 more years of life. Enough time to put my legacy in order. I am glad you are recovering, Grandpa, Christina said sincerely. The attorney informed me that you accepted keeping your ex-husband's assets. Well done, Mr. Albert Sterling nodded. That is only the first step. But ownership alone is not enough. You need teeth. Teeth. Christina frowned. This world is cruel, child. A good person without teeth will be devoured alive. The money from those assets will disappear quickly if you do not know how to defend it or multiply it. What is your plan? To open a bakery? To remarry? Christina remained silent. He had never thought that far ahead. I will make you an offer, he continued. You gave me life. I will give you the world. Not just money but the power to keep it. I will educate you. I will train you to become a respected businesswoman. I will prepare you until you can look at your ex-husband and see him not as a giant, but as an ant. He extended an aged but steady hand. Be my adopted granddaughter. Hear my family. The conditions are harsh. There is no room for tears. You will have to study relentlessly. You must leave behind the Christina of the past, that submissive woman. Do you accept? Christina looked at his hand. She remembered Mrs. Eleanor Harrison's mockery, Tiffany's contempt, Stephen's betrayal. If she returned to the world as the same person, they would destroy her again. She took Mr. Albert Sterling's hand in a firm grip. Teach me, Grandpa. Teach me how to destroy them. He smiled broadly. That is the spirit I was hoping for. Welcome to the family. 3 months passed. For Christina, time began to flow differently. She no longer lived in the hospital, but in Mr. Albert Sterling's expansive residence, located on a private estate in New York City. Her life was far from comfortable. The routine was exhausting. Each day began at 5 in the morning with yoga and meditation to strengthen her physical recovery. At 7, she had breakfast with Mr. Albert Sterling while reading summaries of international economic news. He tested her relentlessly. Why did the price of nickel fall? How does that affect the textile industry? If she could not answer, she had to return to studying the report. From 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, she received intensive private tutoring, business management, corporate law, public speaking, and high society etiquette. The best mentors came to the residence. At 4 in the afternoon, she visited the subsidiaries of Sterling Group to observe on-site operations. The hesitant Christina gradually disappeared. Her image changed. Long, unkempt hair gave way to a sharp, shoulder-length cut, modern and decisive. Her skin reflected constant care. Simple clothing was replaced by tailored blazers and solid heels that echoed across marble floors. But the deepest change was in her gaze. She no longer begged for approval. Her eyes were analytical, cold, alert. News from the outside arrived through the attorney's reports. The divorce had been finalized officially 3 months earlier. Stephen, occupied with preparations for his engagement to Tiffany, did not attend the final ruling. As planned, the assets registered in Christina's name legally became hers. However, the attorney decided not to execute the takeover yet. Let the pig fatten before the slaughter, Christina said during a strategy meeting. Let Stephen feel safe using those factories and properties. When he believes he is at the top, we will pull the ground out from under his feet. Meanwhile, Mrs. Eleanor Harrison's health continued to deteriorate. Without a new kidney, she required dialysis 3 times a week. Medical expenses spiraled out of control. Tiffany's lavish lifestyle made matters worse, and Stephen began to experience liquidity problems. They have started selling some of their luxury cars, Mr. Arthur Orton reported one afternoon. In addition, there are rumors in the market that Harrison Textiles is urgently seeking a major investor to cover short-term debt. While reviewing the financial reports of one of Sterling Group's subsidiaries she now managed, Christina allowed herself a slight smile. They need money, she murmured. We have plenty. She closed the laptop and looked at her reflection in the glass. Mr. Arthur Orton, prepare an acquisition plan. But do not use Sterling Group's name directly. Use the new investment firm we established last month, Phoenix Capital. Do you intend to buy your ex-husband's company? He asked. Not buy it, Christina corrected. I am offering him a golden noose. And he will be delighted to put it around his own neck. The atmosphere in Harrison Textiles' offices was suffocating. Stephen slammed the phone onto his desk beside himself. "The bank rejected the loan extension again," he shouted at his pale secretary. "They say our debt level is now critical." Tiffany entered without knocking. Her visibly swollen belly pressed against her tight dress, but her expression was full of irritation. "Stephen, my card was declined at Saks Fifth Avenue. How humiliating. Weren't we supposed to be rich?" "Shut up," he snapped. "My head is about to explode. Tomorrow my mother needs surgery for a new dialysis catheter. It costs $35,000. Suppliers are not sending us raw materials because we owe them 2 months' payments, and you are thinking about handbags. You should have taken money from your ex-wife in the divorce," she snapped. "Or pressured that doctor." "Do not even mention that doctor," Stephen said, turning pale. Mr. Arthur Orton's threats still haunted him. Since the incident at the hospital, he had not dared to look into Christina at all. To him, she no longer existed. Suddenly the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Harrison, there is a special courier from Sterling Group at reception with an invitation for you." Stephen's eyes widened. "Send him up immediately." A messenger in an impeccable uniform entered and handed him a crimson velvet envelope embossed with gold lettering. Stephen opened it with trembling hands. "Exclusive invitation to the Sterling Group Investors Evening Gala. The Plaza Hotel. Saturday, 7 o'clock in the evening." Inside was an additional card. "We have been closely following the potential of Harrison Textiles. You are invited to present your proposal to our new director of textile investment." It felt to Stephen as if money were falling from the sky. His face lit up. "Tiffany, look at this. Sterling Group has taken an interest in us. If they invest, we will not only clear our debts, we will be able to expand overseas." Tiffany snatched the invitation from him. Her eyes gleamed at the sight of the golden logo. "We are going to be rich again. More than rich. This is our ticket to the big leagues." Stephen laughed in relief, forgetting his problems for a moment. "Prepare your best dress. This Saturday we have to be flawless. We need to impress that investment director." They did not know that the invitation was not a ticket to paradise, but a summons to final judgment. "Where are you watching us from? We would love to know. Tell us in the comments." Across the city, in a spacious dressing room, Christina stood before a mirror. Dr. James Roberts, who now visited her frequently as a friend, lingered in the doorway, visibly impressed. Christina was wearing a midnight blue evening gown that accentuated her figure with elegant restraint. Her shoulders were bare. Around her neck, a diamond necklace shimmered subtly, a gift from Mr. Albert Sterling for completing her business training. "What do you think?" she asked calmly, turning. "Dangerous," Dr. James Roberts replied with an admiring smile. "They will not know what hit them." Christina toyed with the pendant. Her smile was enigmatic. "He always said I had to prove I was family," she whispered. "Tonight I will show them what family really means. One that protects its own, and destroys anyone who harms one of us." She picked up her clutch. Inside there was no makeup or perfume, but a portable drive containing detailed asset records and evidence of Stephen's fraud, ready to be projected on a giant screen if necessary. "Come on, doctor. The show is about to begin." That night, the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel transformed into an ocean of glamour. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across dazzling jewelry. Jazz music floated above murmured conversations and the clink of champagne glasses. Stephen entered with his chin held high, Tiffany on his arm, wearing a striking red dress, far too ostentatious for an event where understated elegance was the rule. He radiated confidence. The rented tuxedo fit him well, and in his inner pocket he carried freshly printed business cards. "Look at all these people," Tiffany whispered, scanning the room. "That is the central bank governor. And over there, that is the Minister of Industry. We have truly made it into high society," she murmured, her eyes shining. "Calm down," Stephen scolded her, though his own heart was pounding. "Do not act like an amateur. Remember our goal. Find the investment director of Phoenix Capital. Her name is not on the invitation, but she is the key to saving our company." They took drinks from a waiter's tray and tried to blend in. The reaction, however, was cool. Guests greeted them politely and then turned away. To the business elite, the aura of desperate nouveau riche surrounding Stephen and Tiffany was obvious. Suddenly the lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the central stage. Amid thunderous applause appeared Mr. Albert Sterling, whom many believed to be gravely ill. He rolled his wheelchair to the podium, looking far stronger than the rumors had suggested. "Good evening, my friends," he said in a deep, charismatic voice. "Many thought I was finished. As you can see, I am still here. And it is all thanks to an angel who gave me a second chance." He smiled as his gaze swept the room, stopping not on Stephen but beyond him. "Tonight, I want to introduce the person who will lead the future of Sterling Group. The woman in whom I have placed my trust to direct our new investment subsidiary, Phoenix Capital, created to drive the creative and textile industries of our country." He paused. "Please welcome my daughter, Christina Sterling." The orchestra burst into a fanfare. The velvet curtains parted. Stephen choked on his drink. Tiffany's glass slipped from her hand and shattered against the marble floor. She did not react. Her eyes were wide with shock. The woman descending the steps of the stage was dazzling. She wore an elegant midnight blue gown that fit her figure with understated sophistication. Her hair, cut into a flawless bob, framed a face enhanced by natural, precise makeup. It was Christina. But she was no longer the same woman. She walked upright, her stride confident. Her gaze held no fear, only command. She stopped beside Mr. Albert Sterling, took the microphone and began to speak in fluent English, her accent refined. "Thank you, Father." Her clear voice filled the ballroom. "The vision of Phoenix Capital is to uncover hidden potential. We seek partners with integrity, strength, and honesty." Stephen felt his feet freeze to the floor. A cold sweat ran down his back. "This cannot be happening," he muttered. "It is Christina, the orphan." "But she is using the Sterling name," Tiffany whispered, pale with envy and fear. "We have to leave. That woman is going to destroy us." "Do not be ridiculous," he said, gripping her arm. "This is an opportunity. That woman was my wife. She must still feel something for me. If she controls the money, it will be even easier. He is weak. I know how to handle her." When the speech ended, Christina Sterling stepped down from the stage and was immediately surrounded by business leaders and executives. Stephen dragged Tiffany with him, pushing rudely through the crowd. "Christina," he called, his voice far too loud. She stopped. She turned calmly. The circle of people opened. Christina Sterling looked at Stephen and Tiffany. There was no anger in her eyes, no sadness. Only a distant emptiness, as if she were looking at complete strangers. "Excuse me," she said with a slight nod. "Who are you?" "It is me," Stephen stammered, forcing a smile. "Stephen. Your your ex-husband. And this is Tiffany. We are invited as well." "Oh," Christina Sterling said, nodding as if placing an unimportant name. "Mr. Harrison from Harrison Textiles. I have read the proposal that reached my assistant's desk. Declining performance, an alarming level of debt, and several pending legal actions." Stephen's face flushed. The words had landed like a whip in front of everyone. "But," Christina Sterling continued with a faint, cold smile, "Phoenix Capital is professional. We evaluate numbers, not personal stories. If you wish to discuss business, come to my office Monday morning. And do not mix private matters." She turned and walked away, the fabric of her dress rippling with each step. Dr. James Roberts offered her his arm and, before following her, cast a sharp glance at Stephen. He remained motionless. He had been rejected, but he had also been given hope. "You see," he whispered to Tiffany, breathless. "She still wants to see me. I still matter to her." The once luxurious Harrison family mansion no longer felt imposing. Several expensive paintings had disappeared from the walls, sold to cover monthly expenses. The shine of the past was beginning to fade. The central heating was turned off to save on electricity, and the air inside the house felt cold and damp. In the master bedroom, now converted into a makeshift hospital room, Mrs. Eleanor Harrison lay weak on the bed. In the corner, a portable dialysis machine, rented at great expense, hummed steadily. "Stephen," Mrs. Eleanor Harrison called hoarsely. Her body, once strong, now seemed fragile, bones beneath skin darkened by uremia. Stephen sat on the edge of the bed and brought a spoonful of thin porridge to her lips. "Yes, Mother. I am in so much pain," she moaned. "It feels as if my bones are breaking from the inside. When can I have surgery again? Have you found a donor? I heard there are intermediaries in China who can obtain organs." Stephen let out a heavy sigh. "It costs $1,500,000, Mother. We do not have that money now. And the bank has frozen the company's assets." "Then sell what is in Christina's name," Mrs. Eleanor Harrison shouted, agitated. "The commercial properties and the New Jersey factory are under her name, but that money is ours. Sell them." The heart monitor began to beep rapidly as she grew upset. Stephen bit his lip. He did not dare tell her that, because of the divorce documents he had rushed through, he could no longer claim those assets. If he told her, he feared she would not survive the shock. "I am working on it, Mother," he lied. "The procedures are complicated." "And the gala last night?" she asked, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Did you meet the investors?" Stephen exchanged a glance with Tiffany, who was sitting on the sofa, distracted by her phone. She rolled her eyes, irritated by the situation. "Yes, Mother," he replied. "Her name is Christina Sterling, the adopted daughter of Mr. Albert Sterling." Mrs. Eleanor Harrison's eyes widened. "You mean your ex-wife? That useless orphan is rich now." "Very rich," Stephen nodded. "And she agreed to see me tomorrow to talk about financing." Mrs. Eleanor Harrison let out a dry, chilling laugh. "Good. I always knew that girl was naive. He must still love you. You are attractive. He probably regrets the divorce. Use her. Deceive her. If necessary, ask her to donate her other kidney or give us the money to buy a new one." "Yes, Mother," he said to calm her, though doubt gnawed at him. Christina's gaze at the gala had not been that of a woman in love. But he had no alternative. He had to believe his own fantasy. "Tomorrow she will sign the contract. We will rise again." In the corner, Tiffany snorted. She stood up and left the room, discreetly sending a message from her phone. "Have the forged documents ready. As soon as Stephen gets the money, we leave the day after tomorrow." On Monday morning, Stephen arrived alone at Sterling Tower. He wore the best suit he still owned and carried a briefcase with a carefully polished financial report. The receptionist escorted him to the 40th floor, the executive level. The conference room had a glass wall with a direct view of the city. At the head of a long mahogany table sat Christina, in a high-backed chair. To her right stood Mr. Arthur Orton. To her left, attorney Marcus Vance, accompanied by several analysts. Christina did not stand to greet him. With a calm gesture, she indicated the chair opposite her, a position that made him seem small. "Sit down, Mr. Harrison." "I have 20 minutes, she said evenly. "Miss Sterling," he corrected with a nervous smile. "Thank you for seeing me. I am impressed by how much you have changed. You look incredible." "Your financial report," she cut in coldly. Stephen quickly produced the documents. "As you can see, Harrison Textiles is experiencing a temporary liquidity issue due to global market conditions, but our fundamentals remain solid. We need $7 million to restructure debt and cover working capital." Mr. Arthur Orton took the report, flipped through it briefly and dropped it onto the table. "This is garbage, Mr. Harrison. We conducted our own due diligence. Your company is, in practice, bankrupt," he continued. "The bank debt is high risk, there are outstanding payments to suppliers, and we detected diversion of operating funds to a personal account in Tiffany's name." The color drained from Stephen's face. "That is slander. Where did you get that information?" "We know everything," Christina said. She leaned slightly forward and met his eyes. "Even so, Phoenix Capital takes risks. I see potential in your assets. The land where your factory stands is strategic." She slid a thick contract toward him. "We are prepared to invest $10 million. Stephen's eyes gleamed with greed. "Really? What are the terms?" "Sign here," Attorney Marcus Vance said. It is a convertible bond agreement. We lend you the money and you pledge all shares of Harrison Textiles and your personal assets as collateral. If in 3 months, you fail to meet the established sales targets, the company becomes 100% ours. 3 months, he hesitated. That is very little time. With $10 million you can boost production, Christina replied. Unless you do not trust your own ability. She paused. Or you can leave empty-handed and watch your mother be discharged from the hospital. Stephen swallowed. He was cornered. He convinced himself he could move the money and manipulate the numbers later. The essential thing was securing the capital. There is one more thing, Attorney Marcus Vance added. In the list of assets offered as collateral, you included several properties registered in Christina's name, which you claim belong to the company. We require that you sign a sworn statement confirming that these assets are, in fact, under the control of Harrison Textiles Management and are pledged as collateral. Stephen smiled inwardly. Idiots, Christina thought. She is agreeing to back my debt with her own assets. If I default, I lose nothing, she loses everything. Without reading the penalty clause, he signed quickly. All right, he said. Christina smiled. This time it was a truly sweet and lethal smile. It is a pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Harrison. The funds will be transferred this afternoon. When Stephen left the conference room with a light step, Christina turned to Attorney Marcus Vance. He has just incurred a debt secured by assets that, by divorce ruling, are legally mine. That constitutes collateral fraud, correct? Exactly, Director, the attorney replied. In addition, the sales indicators we set are impossible to meet. We have already blocked his distribution channels through other group subsidiaries. In 3 months he will not only lose the company, he will go to prison. Perfect, Christina whispered. 2 weeks after the transfer, Stephen felt like the king of the world. He paid part of his debts, moved his mother back into a diamond suite and bought Tiffany a new car. He believed his golden touch had returned. Christina, however, did not sit idle. That afternoon in her private office, Mr. Arthur Orton placed a brown envelope on her desk. The results of the investigation into Tiffany, Director. Christina opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, bank statements, and a medical report. As expected, Christina murmured as she reviewed the images. There were photos of Tiffany at an intimate dinner with a tattooed man, a well-known sports betting runner. There were also records of regular transfers from Tiffany's account to his, money that, in reality, belonged to Stephen's company. But the most shocking item was a medical report from a gynecology clinic. 12 weeks pregnant. Christina frowned. Stephen and I divorced a month ago. They said the pregnancy was recent, but 12 weeks means she became pregnant while I was still hospitalized. Correct, Director, Mr. Arthur Orton nodded. And note this date. At the time of conception, Mr. Harrison was on a business trip in Chicago. During that same period, Tiffany Miller was recorded by security cameras at a hotel in Bali with the tattooed man. Christina smiled bitterly. So the child he boasts about as his heir is not even his. A prenatal genetic test is not possible without maternal consent, Mr. Arthur Orton added, but there is an almost absolute probability that the child is not Mr. Harrison's. And there is more. Tiffany is applying for a visa to Australia. She plans to flee next month after diverting the remaining investment funds. Christina closed the folder. She felt a brief pang of compassion for Stephen, which vanished instantly when she remembered his face as he threw the divorce papers at her. Do not let her escape. Block the visa through our contacts in immigration and preserve all this evidence. I will deliver it to her personally as a farewell gift. Understood, Director. By the way, Mr. Harrison insists on inviting you to a private dinner as thanks for the investment. Christina drummed her fingers on the desk. Accept it. I want to see how far he is willing to crawl. The restaurant was on the rooftop of a skyscraper, intimate in atmosphere with views of New York City glowing at night. Stephen had reserved a private area complete with candles and roses. He had truly made an effort. Christina arrived in a simple, elegant black dress. She sat across from him, keeping her distance. Thank you for coming, Christina, Stephen said softly as he poured wine. I missed dinners like this with you. We used to eat at neighborhood diners. And look at us now. I do not drink alcohol, she replied politely, pushing the glass aside. Let us get to the point. What do you want? Stephen set down his napkin and adopted the sorrowful expression he had practiced in the mirror. I regret everything, he began. I made a terrible mistake. I was under enormous pressure. My mother was very ill. I panicked. And Tiffany, she took advantage of my weakness. She manipulated me. Christina fought back nausea. Manipulated you? Did you not say I was merely a spare part for your mother? That was Mrs. Eleanor Harrison, he rushed to correct. You know how she is. I was forced. I am an only child. I was afraid of failing her. But I swear to you that while you were in surgery, my heart was screaming that I loved you. He dared to take Christina's hand across the table. Her hand remained cold and still. Tiffany is a burden, he continued, emboldened. She is vulgar, selfish, nothing like you. I see it clearly now. That baby was a mistake. I am not happy with her. Inside Christina's clutch, her phone recorded every word. So to be clear, Christina said evenly, what you are telling me is that you want to get back together with me and abandon the woman who is about to become the mother of your child. For you I would leave anything, Stephen promised, his eyes shining. We can start over. You have the capital. I have the business vision. We join forces, get rid of Tiffany, even deal with my mother. Or if you prefer, place her in the best private care facility. With you everything is possible. Christina looked at the man across from her with absolute disgust. For money and power, Stephen was willing to abandon a pregnant woman, and even dispose of his own mother. There was no loyalty in him. He was a parasite. She slowly withdrew her hand. She smiled, but her eyes were cold as ice. It is an interesting proposal, Stephen, she said. Very clear. I need time to think about it. Of course, he smiled, convinced he had trapped her. Take your time. I will wait. I think we are still meant to be together. Christina stood. I have to go. I have an early meeting tomorrow. A meeting about asset seizure. Whose assets? Stephen asked, confused. You will find out soon, she replied with an enigmatic smile. Enjoy dinner. It will likely be your last luxurious one. Christina walked away, leaving Stephen smiling like a fool. He did not know that outside the restaurant, police units and Sterling Group's legal team were preparing for a dawn raid. The game was over. The time for execution had arrived. 3 months passed as stipulated in the contract. That morning, the sky over New York City was gray, as if it sensed the fate awaiting Harrison Textiles. Stephen was sitting in his large executive chair, his feet propped up on the desk. He felt calm. The sales report in his hands showed spectacular numbers. Fabricated numbers, of course, created together with an accountant he had bribed. He planned to present it that afternoon to the Phoenix Capital team to request an extension or additional financing. Life is easy if you are just a little clever, he murmured, sipping his coffee. Suddenly, the door to his office burst open. Stephen jumped to his feet, spilling coffee across the white desk. In the doorway stood attorney Marcus Vance, Mr. Arthur Orton, and 4 broad-shouldered men wearing Sterling Group security uniforms. Behind them, employees watched in stunned silence. What the hell is this? Stephen shouted, his face flushed with rage. Do you know where you are? I am the chief executive officer here. The lawyer stepped forward calmly and placed a red folder on the soaked desk. Correction, Mr. Harrison. You are the former chief executive officer. As of this moment, Harrison Textiles and all its assets have been seized by Phoenix Capital. Are you insane? Stephen scoffed, though his hands were already shaking. Look at this report. Our sales increased by 200%. I met the targets. Mr. Arthur Orton snatched the document from him. We do not need your worthless paper. Last night we conducted a full audit while the office was empty. Your warehouses are empty, the machinery is idle, and every sales invoice is fraudulent. The buyers were shell companies created by you. Stephen was left speechless. Cold sweat ran down his back. How did you get in last night? You violated Clause 4 of the investment contract by falsifying data, the attorney continued, his voice as cold as a verdict. Under the penalty clause, full ownership of the shares transfers to Phoenix Capital. You have 10 minutes to vacate the premises. Wait, you cannot do this, Stephen pleaded, panic rising. Let us talk. Christina will understand. Where is Christina? Director Sterling is on her way to Angels Medical Center to visit your mother, Mr. Arthur Orton replied. She expects you there to deliver the remaining notices. What other notices? The attorney produced another document. You offered personal assets as collateral, including retail properties and the factory in New Jersey. Those assets are now the legal property of Director Sterling, pursuant to the final divorce ruling. Stephen's eyes widened. By pledging assets that did not belong to you, you committed fraud and misappropriation. The police are waiting for you in the lobby. His legs gave out and he collapsed back into the chair. It was a trap. Christina had designed it from the very beginning. By allowing him to use her assets as collateral, she had set him up for criminal charges. Director Sterling requested that your arrest be delayed by 2 hours, Mr. Arthur Orton added, checking his watch. She wants you to witness the final act at the hospital. I advise you not to waste time. Stephen did not hesitate. He grabbed his car keys and ran like a fugitive, shoving past his own employees, who now looked at him with open contempt. His kingdom collapsed in seconds. Stephen burst into the diamond suite, gasping for air, his world in ruins. He found Tiffany stuffing jewelry and luxury watches into her handbag in desperation. What are you doing? He shouted, yanking the bag from her hands. Are you trying to run? Let go of me. Tiffany shrieked. Your company has been seized. You have nothing. I have to survive. And our baby? Stephen stammered. That baby is not yours, a cold voice said from the doorway. Christina entered the room, followed by her security detail. She looked flawless, almost judicial. She tossed a brown envelope at Stephen's feet. Photographs and medical reports spilled across the floor. See for yourself, Stephen. Tiffany never left her lover from Bali. And the blood type confirms it. You and she are type O, but the baby is type A. It is not your child. Stephen collapsed to the floor, shattered by the double betrayal. But Christina was not finished. She connected her phone to the suite speakers. Listen to the real face of this man, she said, her calm terrifying. Stephen's recorded voice filled the room. Tiffany is just a burden. The baby was a mistake. My mother can be placed in a private care facility. With you, anything is possible. Mrs. Eleanor Harrison slowly turned her head toward her son. Tears streamed down her wrinkled face. You are going to abandon me, she whispered. No, mother, Stephen babbled, backing away. It was just a strategy. To deceive Christina and get the money. Christina stood. Her expression did not change. No, Stephen. That is your true nature. You sell anyone to survive. You sold your wife for a kidney. You sold your lover for money. And you were ready to sell your own mother for comfort. She looked at the three of them, shattered. This is the family you were so proud of, Christina said calmly. Betraying one another. Deceiving one another. Abandoning one another. Enjoy the hell you created yourselves. Realizing she had no way out, Tiffany seized a moment of distraction, grabbed her handbag and ran, shoving past the bodyguards. Let her go, Christina ordered. The police in the lobby will take care of her for the embezzlement that Mr. Arthur Orton has already reported. Only Stephen, sitting on the floor and crying like a child, and Mrs. Eleanor Harrison, struggling to breathe, remained. Christina stepped closer to the bed. Mrs. Eleanor's dry, bony hand tried to clutch hers. Forgive me. I was wrong. Come back, my child. Be my daughter-in-law again. Ask Mr. Albert Sterling to find a donor. He has so many connections. The scene was pathetic. The woman who had called her trash and a spare part was now begging for her life. Stephen crawled forward and wrapped his arms around Christina's legs. Please. My mother is dying. I do not care if I go to prison, but not her. You are good. You are an angel. Christina slowly withdrew her hand from Mrs. Eleanor's grasp. "It is true that I donated a kidney," she said softly. "But I believed I was giving it to my mother. To the woman who gave me unconditional love and never asked anything of me." She leaned closer to Mrs. Eleanor. "You are not my mother. You are the woman who told her son to divorce me while I was bleeding in an operating room. To you I was not a person. I was an object." He straightened. "A kidney is a gift of life. And that gift is given only to those who deserve it." The heart monitor began to beep faster and faster. Beep, 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 beep. "Christina!" Stephen shouted. "We are finished here," she replied. She turned and walked toward the door without looking back. "Do not leave. Mother. Mother." Stephen's screams merged with a long, continuous tone from the monitor. A flat green line appeared on the screen. Mrs. Eleanor Harrison's heart had stopped. Not only because of renal failure, but because it broke when she heard her own son's betrayal. She died in fear, in pain, and with a regret that could never be redeemed. Christina paused for a brief moment at the door when she heard the final sound. She did not smile. She did not cry. She simply let out a long, deep breath, as if a massive weight she had carried around her ankles for far too long had finally been released. Then she turned and left, leaving behind the now silent room, filled only with Stephen's broken sobs. 2 days after Mrs. Eleanor Harrison's death, the funeral was desolate. Brief and joyless. Only Stephen, a few distant relatives who attended out of sheer obligation, and cemetery staff were present. There were no business partners, no influential friends, no figures of high society who had surrounded Mrs. Eleanor for years. News of the Harrison family's bankruptcy and the fraud scandal had already spread, turning them into social pariahs. Stephen stood before a mound of freshly turned red earth. He wore a wrinkled black shirt. His swollen, hollow eyes stared without seeing. He was completely alone. Tiffany had been arrested at the airport while attempting to flee to Singapore with a forged passport. The money she had stolen from the company was confiscated as evidence in the investigation. When the floral offerings ended, 2 uniformed police officers approached Stephen. "Mr. Stephen Harrison." He turned slowly. "Yes. Police. You are under arrest for fraud, misappropriation of assets, and falsification of banking documents. Here is the warrant." Stephen did not resist. He had no strength left. He extended his hands. The cold metal of the handcuffs closed around his wrists, colder still than the cemetery air. As they led him toward the police vehicle, he noticed a black luxury sedan parked discreetly nearby. The rear window was halfway down. Inside, wearing dark sunglasses, sat Christina, watching him in silence. Stephen stopped for a second. He wanted to shout, to beg, to curse. But no sound came out. In that moment he understood that everything was the exact result of the seeds he himself had sown. He had traded a real diamond for a worthless stone. He had abandoned a real woman for an empty illusion. Christina slowly raised the window. The car pulled away without haste. Stephen was pushed into the police van, headed toward the cold bars of the cell that would be his home for the next 10 years. That night, in the detention cell, he curled up on the hard floor. There was no soft bed. No air conditioning. No warm food prepared by his mother. The image of Christina's smiling face, from before all this madness began, surfaced in his mind. It was the only pure thing he had ever had. And he had destroyed it with his own hands. Stephen cried in silence. A kind of crying no one would ever hear. 1 year later, Christina stood on a quiet hill in a landscaped cemetery, far from the noise of the city. In front of her were 2 simple headstones immaculately cared for, the graves of her biological parents. Christina placed a bouquet of freshly cut white lilies. "Mom," she whispered with a calm smile. "I am fine. More than fine. I hope you are proud of me." The evening breeze gently stirred the tips of her short hair. The past year had been intense. Under the guidance of Mr. Albert Sterling, Christina had transformed Phoenix Capital into a respected social investment firm. She used its profits to found an organization dedicated to low-income patients with kidney failure, providing free dialysis and support for legal ethical transplants. She had turned her pain into hope for others. The surgical scar on her left side had faded into a pale line. She used to hate it, seeing it as a symbol of her naivete. Now she regarded it as a medal of honor, the proof that she had fought, fallen, and risen stronger. "Finish talking to your heart?" a deep voice asked behind her. Christina turned. Dr. James Roberts was standing there. He was not wearing a lab coat, but a casual shirt with the sleeves rolled up. In his hands were 2 cups of hot coffee. "Yes," Christina replied. "I am finished." She accepted the cup he offered. "Mr. Albert Sterling asked me to give you a message," James said, taking a sip. "He says not to be late. There is a shareholders' meeting tomorrow, and his favorite granddaughter needs to be in top shape to deal with demanding board members." Christina let out a light laugh. "That grandfather spoils me," she said, "even though his new kidney is perfectly healthy. Thanks to an exceptional donor," James added, looking at her. His gaze was no longer that of a doctor toward a patient, nor of a simple friend. It was the look of a man who deeply admired the woman standing before him. "I have always admired you," he continued. "Not for what you have now, but because you did not let hatred turn you into a monster like them." Christina lifted her eyes to the sky, now painted in shades of gold and orange. "Revenge is exhausting, James. I reclaimed what was mine. I taught them a lesson. The rest is for God and the law to handle. I have a life to live." He nodded, took a deep breath, gathered his courage and gently covered the back of Christina's hand with his own. "In that case, maybe there is room in your new busy life for dinner. Not a business dinner. A date." Christina looked at his hand, then into his eyes. The memory of Stephen and the trauma of the past flickered briefly through her mind, but it faded when she saw the sincerity in James, the man who had saved her in the operating room, who stood by her when everything collapsed and who patiently waited for her to heal. She did not answer right away. She turned her hand and intertwined her fingers with his. "Do you like chicken skewers from neighborhood bars?" she asked with a playful smile. "Not luxury rooftop restaurants." James laughed, relieved. His face lit up. "I love them. I know the best place in all of New York City." They walked together down the cemetery hill, leaving the shadows of the past behind. Ahead of them, the sun slowly disappeared, as if promising it would rise again, brighter than ever. Christina had been reborn. A new life was just beginning. If you enjoyed this story of justice and redemption, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next story.